Welcome everybody to this masterclass on how to carry on poke characters, or in other words, we could say long-range characters. I just wanted to bring this up because I wanted to talk about lane control. That topic's been requested a lot, and I actually seen a lot of students that get decent improvements if you understand the map control and just lane control overall. How do you rotate on the map, how you just able to control space through actively applying pressure all the time. I will mostly use examples of long range characters. They're gonna be, I think, 2 DPS, or actually two supports and 1 DPS character. So we'll use some of the pro examples, and I will share the concepts by just sharing the gameplay examples, emphasizing the concepts there. I think we did that back in the days. I kind of made those 3 masterclasses on how to carry as duelists, how to carry on Vanguard, and how to carry on strategies. So it's going to be a little bit similar. They're just going to be more niche themes which we can break down. But if you guys also want to watch the other masterclasses, feel free to do so. As usual, all the links are in class and drills, or you can also find some of those, well, all of those actually, in Gosu Academy website too. But yeah, let's start with just the most important topics. It's not going to be huge presentation, to be honest. It's just mostly gonna be practical session. So let's start here. Okay, what we got are 2 main things we'll look for. It's mainly going to be understanding how we doing poke in general. It's just doing as much damage as possible before the fight. Typically, if you play any long range characters, well, long-range characters could be anything like Widow, maybe Hawkeye, maybe even Punisher. You maybe also guys playing Loki, even stuff like Luna Snow, for example. It's pretty pokish. Obviously, a lot of the characters are pretty versatile, and they can lean towards some of the other playstyles too. Yeah, generally speaking, 3 kind of playstyles is Brawl, Poke, and Dive, and today we're mainly gonna focus on Poke playstyle. So what are you getting out of this? What are the fundamentals for you to look for? So yeah, just 2 main things: doing as much damage before the fight and lane control. I think let's just start with examples straight away. We'll take a look at one of the games. I saved you some of those and all the videos. You can also watch those on your own. I just recorded the videos because I also use those as an example in my coaching sessions too. Here, this first one is gonna be Loki, second one is Black Widow, and the other one here actually should be Hala, I believe. Okay, all the replays, we'll go over those. Let's just start with the Loki, I think, and I will break down all those concepts and bullet points. Okay, let's just start with this simple idea of constant pressure. Yeah, making sure that you always doing pressure before the fight, actually, that you just trying to poke out the enemy as much as possible. Okay, let's just go in here. We'll need this replay. Here we go. This is number 1 Loki player we're gonna be looking at, and it's Hyper. Some of you guys may know him. I already reviewed one of his games on Invisible Woman, and it just should be in masterclass on strategies, how to carry a strategist role. You can also take a look at that. This player is really good. They are Overwatch League, have a lot of experience with hero shooters, been playing Overwatch a lot, and now they're also playing in a team, and number 1 on many characters. To be honest, they're really, really good. As you could see, on both teams, it's pretty stacked. They're a lot of people I know, for example, Echo, Nevix. There are also players like Sparker, who we also reviewed. A lot of the good players, actually. So let's take a look. What are they doing? How they actually just constantly poking before the fight? I think this is going to be one of the most important things to us. Okay, just wait for the replay to load, and we should be good. Oh, the replay expired. Sometimes happens. Let's see, maybe we'll need to restart the game. Sometimes that happens. Yeah, maybe the replay is not working now, but yeah, let's just restart then. Let's do that real quick. Okay, but anyway, you guys got any specific questions about poke roll overall? Just anything you want to ask? How do you provide value? Or yeah, just feel free to maybe unmute if you want to ask those questions while I'm just relaunching the game. So any questions you guys want to bring up?
if anything comes to mind throughout it, like maybe like movements. I feel like playing like a range character, it can be difficult sometimes to have smooth movement so that you're not like getting hit on by people pushing our backline and stuff.
Yeah, you're right. So the question is how you can have that smooth movement. That is what you wanna ask, or
Yeah, just like the best way to mm, defend yourself when maybe getting, because typically I guess playing a ranged character you would be in your own back line, and so um I don't know, maybe best ways to avoid getting dove and shit on.
yeah, exactly. So there are gonna be two main things which are most important to us, and starting with the first one is just doing the constant damage output. If I'm able to poke out any diver or just like anyone who can get close to you on the map, then this way you're protecting yourself because you're forcing out their abilities. You force them to do something and actually, well, be passive. And I'm thinking not necessarily may need to exactly play in the back a lot, and that's what you will see a lot of those guys will be doing. You can take off angles on the map, you can just try to position yourself even in a more aggressive way, depending on the character you play, depending on the map. But overall, this is just something what forces the enemy to do in action. I always emphasize that. Don't just wait for the enemy to do something and dive you, but prevent them diving you by actively poking. So there's going to be a lot about that, to be honest. Okay, and replay is loaded. Let's take a look. The constant damage output. Of course, there are also dozens of other things we can be looking for, but let's start with that. So right away, you see those players are typically really good at just starting the pressure from those long range lanes. Yeah, we just want to do as much damage as possible before the fight even starts because we're farming ult charge first off, and we also trying to force out the enemy to do something with their abilities. As we mentioned, you can see specifically for Loki what is important with the constant damage output is how you place the clone and when you place the clone. And you see a lot of times there are gonna be him placing the clone somewhere on off angle. Usually there's a general principle you can follow when you're trying to just place your clones is try to form some sort of triangle on the map. Okay, so here this guy position A and this clone is position B, and maybe in theory we can also have another clone just near us like C here. This forms triangle and you're trying to form it in a way which allows you to constantly shoot that area which you want. You don't want to just have your clone somewhere where you're not applying pressure, but because you're placing clones in triangles, what it does, we constantly trying to go for that damage output, and we also have that escape ability. If we getting dived or something, then we can always just try to move away. But the most important is the damage output. By the way, the clones can just divert the attention as well. Constant damage, a constant damage output. You see them falling back now because you need to use the range. You need to just constantly apply damage from far too. And this here, you see, even this does a kind of little triangle here. There's one clone here, and maybe you playing to the side here. Another clone was a little bit far up, but it's just maybe we're trying to anticipate the dive or something, just in general a lot of pressure towards our front line. We can also save our team with a shift, which is really useful, this ability here, this your lamp in a way. Okay, constantly applying pressure, always doing something there, and later on you see they just put attention on the most active member of their team, anybody who is critical, and trying to rotate. Really important thing is keeping your distance as the long distance character. You're trying to just always be active with your damage, to be honest. Okay, so this is the start. They're actually gonna swap from Loki, but we're just gonna look at another perspective. From here, they again gonna be playing Loki on this part of the map, on the tag. So let's watch. They actually swapped to on defense, there was invisible, but yeah, again, constant damage output, just always trying to do something, and you will see another idea, and that's where the presentation here will look at your lane control. What is that about? I can just explain that real quick. On any map, you can separate it on 3 lanes, typically. So for example, this image here. This is just normal control map. It doesn't matter where you are, what map you're using for this, but we trying to just think about it like 3 lanes here. So this is the lane on the above, this is the lane in the middle, and this is the lane on the bottom. Your idea as a long-range character is to make sure you control as many lanes as possible while controlling open space. This is important. You don't want to be stuck in enclosed spaces a lot of times. You just want to have a nice overview in the open space. And that's why lane control is so important. And you constantly rotating on the lane allows you to just kind of keep the enemy pressured. Yeah, I don't want to just fall back towards my core necessarily, or maybe just try to give up my lane. For example, here, this map, I can be moving on this lane, maybe start here and then go deeper, and then maybe go here. And this can always be your transitions, moving on the lane while having line of sight of your support. A lot of times they just give up their off angle, they give up their lane, and this is not effective. Again, for anyone who is new, what off angle is, it's a position away from your core. So for example, here, if I have the same position, let's say this is where my core is, and if I'm at this position B, yeah, let's just maybe use different color for this, like this one here, this is position B, and this is position B1. All of those can be your off angles because you position away from that A position from your core, and your idea a lot of times trying to move on the lane as much as possible. Just keep controlling those open sides of the map. I will just show you another example of this. It's gonna be different map as well. Now let's look at this here real quick. Okay, I will remove this screenshot, and it's just another image. I made a quick screenshot of this map because there's where the Loki is playing currently. We have this middle lane over here, and it's just generally speaking where your card is moving. Yeah, let's maybe be more accurate. Yeah, this is how the card is moving, and there's also a lane on the left, and there's also a lane on the right. Sort of sometimes lanes can go one into another, but for us, what's important is make sure we constantly are moving on some sort of lane and controlling as much open space as possible too. So this way you achieve better map control, and we'll see them do that right away. So instead of being with their core, we're just trying to take a slight off angle and be in control of that open space. We're still able to see our team, but this creates additional pressure on the enemy team. It diverts attention, so it's really important. Okay, let me see if there are any questions. My least favorite map, always struggle with my positioning in this map, even when I'm doing well. Yeah, exactly. It's quite tricky. A lot of times you can just go all the way left side, all the way right side, for example, to just be able to control that. Yeah, because we want to have that open sideline constantly, especially as a bow character. Yeah, don't stay down main, because everyone goes there. You want to just bring something else to the table, but meanwhile control open space with your team. See how you position, they're constantly moving on the lane. Even when they're in danger, they don't fall back towards their team. I just kind of keep this lane going, ideally. Of course, there's somewhat of a need, then we can try to fall back towards our team, but there's kind of constant pressure. I will not talk a lot about how they use the lamp, that's another topic, but anyway, the simple thing with your abilities is just make sure you are supporting the most active pressure whenever we looking at the poke characters. And here again, they go back to their lane on the left, they just constantly shoot, applying pressure, constantly shooting. It might be maybe seen as not much is happening, right? But your constant damage output forces an enemy to do something, forces them to rotate. So that's going to be important. This first section is pretty annoying, to be honest. She's just not as easy to break through, but eventually they will. Yet there are some ultimates, they got some just to push through, and this allows them to take a little bit more space. Now, let's just maybe skip this fight a little bit. We can go forward because this is gonna end really soon, I believe. And now this is where the interesting part comes. Here again, we should be thinking, how do we position away from your core? Constant damage, lane control, move on your lane somewhere. So for example, we can just be getting this spot over here, or maybe there's gonna be even this right high ground there, because this gets a nice overview on the entire field, and we can be in control of that entire open space. You don't want to be constantly stuck with your team. You just want to get map control. You see, the best players always do that. Yeah, they get the most important positions. If you guys remember, we had a lesson on the power positions before. They will typically those power positions allow you to be in control of more lanes usually as well. Something to keep in mind. Yeah, for example, here, constant damage output. And I'm not rotating towards the main unless it's necessary. I'm constantly keeping the damage. They also do a lot of jump peaks. Yeah, if we're talking about the smooth tech, there's just some sort of more pressure you can do if you want to constantly keep your hitbox hidden. You can do more jump peaks and apply pressure this way. And later on, once the fight starts, they just recognize, well, they gotta use the ultimate maybe to just sustain a little bit, especially because they lost one member. They not using it right away though, being patient because it's not needed. That's also a good thing. But yeah, because we eventually gotta do something with that, we just go in and seems just drop that enemy locker here. But yeah, later on, notice what they're gonna do. Again, they will not be stuck on card most likely. I think they just have to move somewhere in the lane, different, off angle. Place the clone, help yourself to just stand here and apply constant pressure, apply constant damage output. You don't want to be positioned on the card, especially here, because they might be recontesting. If they do, you want to give them a dilemma. Either they contest you or they contest the card. Okay, do you guys have any questions about that part which I mentioned? Lane control, constant damage output, pretty simple so far. I'm not mentioning maybe too complicated topics, but yeah, any questions you guys got? If not, we can move forward, that's fine. Let's keep going. Also got 2 other POEs we'll review, same topic, so it's gonna be simple and concise. And if we look at the clone placement again, more trying to create the pressure in the same area, you will typically see if they're trying to achieve bottom-up control, trying to place it as in triangle in a way, because we want to give ourselves options, what we're doing. And now, what is happening? There's a main lane here. And there's also a lane on the right side and lane on the left. See how they're not diverting, they're not just kind of magnet. I always say it in a way like there's a plat magnet idea. Okay, like what happens is it's when you are getting pressured, you just sort of diverting towards that main, and you just always go there. You don't want to do that. You don't want to just be glued towards the main if you're in danger. You just try to move your lane where you're able to do constant pressure. You will see them do that actually here. They will, even though they expect the enemy team to push, they just constantly move in their lane. They maybe even try to take that nice off angle over here and just break them up a little and keep the pressure from that lane. Yeah, we're not without team. We shouldn't be doing that. Divert attention, keep the pressure up. And there's a small idea which I want to bring up as well. Usually, as a poke character, you want to find a crossfire with somebody. Who do you find crossfire with is going to be typically one of the big poke characters. It's just anyone who do a lot of bursts. So in our case, it can be Hawkeye, for example. If Hawkeye is in this position A, I can be at this position B. And just consecrate the crossfire. What crossfire does, it makes it easy for you to shut down the enemy. And for example, if enemy will hide from A, then you at B might apply more consistent pressure. Let's say they're hiding from you at B while you're pressuring from B, then maybe A can do a little bit more pressure. Yeah, if we're talking about this box, yeah, imagine you take a crossfire in this box and there is somebody hiding behind that box. Okay, and if this is happening, I can just open up this right side and try to shoot him. What this person will do, they will go left a little bit, but if they go left, then they're exposed to that angle on the right side. Let's call it A, yeah? And that's how crossfire works. It's just simple, but a lot of people don't do that. They just keep getting stuck together. Okay, let's read the question. Unfortunately, when I add something on autopilot, I don't take high if that dive here is Spidey Panther Cap when I try to stay with the team. It'll have Moon Knight. Yeah, exactly. I highly suggest you don't want to be stuck with the team. You guys, if you're playing versus the dive, yes, you need to have soft angles, kind of line of sight on each other, so you're able to just deny the dive. But it's really bad if you stay stacked up because you allow the divers to take map control and just surround you. You don't want that. You want to poke out the divers by using different lanes. And because you poke out the divers, then they're not able to dive your team. That makes a lot of more sense. Yeah, thank you. Let's keep going. We got a lot of this constant pressure going on. Seems that their blue team, Sapa team, they kind of just have the momentum, so they just keep up the pressure. There's not much going on later, but when the real fight is gonna start, we'll mostly expect them to take an off angle again, try to go for different lanes. So there's a lane on the middle, and there's a lane on the left, and we can also have a lane on the right. They probably will position at the left. Why? Because you have more consistent damage output from here, more longer range sightline, instead of being the right side where the space is more enclosed, I think. Here, main can also be working, but make sure the position is with those clones is solved too. Make sure you kind of create a nice triangle. See one clone over here, another clone here, and there was also another clone to the front, kind of. But yeah, usually you can always solve that in a way that plays the clones to different spots. I mean, form a triangle with a clone. Sometimes you can stack your clones though. That's what I want to say as a locker, because if you expect a lot of pressure in one lane, it's either you can do a lot of big pressure on the lane if everybody's stacked up, especially you can place the clones in that area, or you can deny a lot of pressure, and denying is all about using your lamp, or maybe even just trying to push them back with general damage too. This is where you expect the clones to be kind of more stacked up on the same lane, but usually we're trying to kind of split our control. We want to control as many lanes as possible. Oh, this way it makes it easy for you to control the space. Okay, I think they're gonna win this fight eventually. Those ideas so far, we're gonna elaborate on more. I will use more examples, other characters too. But yeah, you guys got any questions for Loki at least? All those principles, lane control, constant damage output. Or does everything make sense? If it does, we will move towards the next. What's the next topic?
Everything's making sense so far.
Yeah, everything makes sense. Perfect. And that's good to hear. All right, let's see what we got. This is another replay. And guys, I just want to say this is number one. This is number one player in Loki, and this is number one player in Widow. I think there was another one player actually, but their profile was hidden. I just took that replay here. I think you can also watch the video later on if you want, but yeah, the same principles will apply a lot. Actually, there will be some moments of time where you will notice that they are going to be dealing with angles quite a lot. Okay, they will have to just poke out the divers to be able to stay alive, and there's just constant idea of pressure before the fight. Okay, let's take a look. What do we got? It's one of the old maps, yeah. So not nothing new here, but it's still really important, and I think a lot of the times people underestimate Widow, especially for those maps where you have a lot of long range sightlines. You could actually create a lot of pressure, I think, and just try to constantly maybe force out the abilities. You can also try to just try to just create a crossfire, as we mentioned, with the rest of your core. For example, here again, we got Hawkeye. So who we create a crossfire with is them. We just want to constantly try to take another angle of attack, I would say. Okay, so right before the fight starts, you will see them actually doing the poke damage. It's just slightly, just doing a little bit more. Yeah, just making sure that we're farming a little bit of wall charge. And then after that, because they recognize, okay, there's someone who's moving on my lane. What you want as a poke character, have distance from angles. You need to have long range capabilities when you're moving on the lane. Yeah, it's not like we have to fall back on the point or something. No, you just keep moving on your lane, but have the distance from the threatening angles. Like this here, maybe they about enter, or maybe there's Wolverine, or maybe, I don't know, Moon Knight, or even the Saddler can be even more dangerous to us. We gotta move away, start just transition somewhere else. And this is where they also have nice overview. See how many lanes we can control. We can control this entire open space. We can also control this on the left here. And position on the right too, if somebody goes all the way right side there too. You see, this is what I'm talking about. What do we do against the divers? Well, we just need to poke them. Ideally, if you can poke that before the fight even starts, that's really good. If you're not able to, then at least just prepare your abilities, whatever you got. It can be your stun, it can be just any of the big burst pressure abilities, or maybe some of your defensive, yeah, depending on the characters you play. And just make sure they actually make a commitment and you deny the engagement. Like in case of the Widow, you can just go for the combo and make sure you just use the E. Using the E to just deny the engagement. Here the Salak run away, so we're not able to do any of the E, but you will see later on how they will be able to apply pressure with that. Yeah, for example here, yeah, we're just doing that and going for the hard shot after. Just deal with the divers, make sure you poke them more. See how much more emphasis they put on this. They wanna deny the divers, so it's hard for them to dive you. Yeah, deny the Salak, deny the Moon Knight. Maybe you can deny Wolverine, but I think it's easier for you to just deal with that, to be honest, because you have a verticality in this video. But yeah, we gotta poke that out, constant damage. You see that pressure before the fight. A lot of people will just go back and set up, and that's what I see a lot of students do as well. They just not poking before the fight starts. I think you can always try to maybe sneak in a kill opportunity. Why not? We can, especially with that damage boost with the Mantis. Yeah, right now it's really oppressive, to be honest. If you have this double sniper composition here, and just instantly delete somebody. Okay, and see, they gonna be staying main now, but because there's just no other angle, more convenient angle to take, but then later on they'll actually move towards the off angle, yeah, and try to probably create a crossfire. Especially here. Yeah, I would like to probably them moving a little bit sooner because the distance is really short. Yeah, they've probably been looking for this sniper rifle shot, just like plasma burst. But unfortunately, Salak and the other, like Rocket, their ultimate is pretty close, so you probably need to just try to move away faster. They just overstay their welcome a little bit, but it's fine. Nobody's perfect, right? So that's alright. I'm gonna see and read the questions. It's funny that a lot of people consider Punisher poke when he also has a shotgun. Yeah, that's true, but why we consider Punisher poke? Because it's just of their main damage output. Yeah, all the characters are pretty versatile in Morales, I would say. But Punisher, main damage output comes from the long distance. That's why it's a poke character. And of course, there are some capabilities for you to do shotgun damage. Well, some brawl capabilities, but they're less. Yeah, if we compare, like, your turret does a lot of damage, your general pressure is all about the distance, so that's why it's a more of poke character. Yeah, you can think about where you are leaning towards. I always show the students like that triangle. On the one side of triangle you have brawl, on the other side you have dive, and on the other side you have poke. So that Punisher is leaning towards the poke a little bit more, yeah. And definitely not dive, well, even though there's some ability, but anyway, it's not as much compared to the other dive characters like Spider-Man or maybe Venom, so you gotta keep that in mind. The strats I play are Cloak and Dagger and Invisible Woman, occasional Luna, but I have been trying to learn Loki, so I'm definitely going to apply these teachings to the next time I practice him. Yeah, that's good. To be honest, a lot of this can be applicable to any long-range character. You guys name it. Anybody who can do poke, Mantis, maybe even Luna Snow, Hawkeye, all of this applicable. I'm just using the examples of the characters. Right, so we see them, again, going for the off-angle option, staying away from the core, and having nice overview on all potential lanes we can get. Of course, we cannot control all the lanes, but at least here we got the control over the middle, control just slight, well, you cannot see the right lane, but just kind of slight control over this right side of the statue and also the left side. So kind of two lanes almost in our control. Yeah, this middle one, the left one, so this is pretty good. And by the way, a lot of people don't know about that spot here. This is pretty nice. You can always break that, and if you have some vertical mobility, you can get there and just try to position on this off angle and constantly apply pressure if you don't have any damage fall off too. It's really nice. Characters like Namor, for example, or I don't know, like this Widow in this case is good, or maybe if Hawkeye gets there somehow, you can also just stay in that position. And see, with creating that nice crossfire, our Hawkeye is in the main while we're here. And just constant damage output, constant pressure on the enemy. I want you to pay attention to their crosshair placement as well. If you're trying to do consistent poke, you need to have some expectations of where the enemies might be. And if we expect the enemy to be in a certain spot, then we can place the crosshair accordingly. Let's break this down, for example. You see this, something they saw, but they could also be anticipating that Hala might take an off angle somewhere away from their core, which is at A. So we can position our crosshair right on the corner where do we expect the Hala to be. There's always much easier way for you to aim on the poke character. Obviously, head level as well. That's something what we talked about in the cover masterclass, I think. Just position your cross in the corners, and once they start crossing the corner, you can shoot. You can just do a lot of pressure there, right? Special damage boost, it just allows you to do a lot of damage there. And see, this is the power of the crossfire. Not only us, but also our Hawkeye is getting the kills. Unfortunately, Hawkeye died, but yeah, they just didn't move away too fast enough. They needed to keep distance and keep poking. Keep poking, especially the enemy comp. You have more capabilities to just win versus them if you constantly apply damage. And see this part where we prepare our abilities. Yeah, if somebody dives us, we just can deny the engage with the E and push them back. But again, try to regain the map control. Just make sure you stay on that side lane here and control as much open space as possible. Constantly apply pressure on that main area. Constant shooting, constant just doing something. They also use cover pretty well. If you notice that, they try to minimize the strats they deal with. They're not trying to be exposed to everything on the map, which is really, really important. Just deal with one threat at a time if you can, one angle at a time, if it's possible. Okay, do you guys have any questions about anything? About all these principles? Again, we're just using all of this here. What's been mentioned so far is just making sure we do as much poke as possible, lane control, using long distance, creating crossfire, off angle. Pretty simple stuff. I'm not diving much in nuances so far. No question. Okay, good. All right, let's keep watching. You guys can also unmute if you got any question, just in case. They're also really good at just recognizing the tempo a lot of times, because if you don't have the tempo, it means, well, just the enemy, they have an advantage. You gotta move away, you gotta give up the space. And in here, you see them exactly do that. They will not exactly position too far forward, even though some of the people that will try to touch the card, stop the card or something. No, it's not viable play, I think. If you recognize you're not gonna be taking the 6v6 fight, I think it's not the best idea. Unless you maybe have a lot of ultimates or something. But yeah, you need to keep a distance. Here, I think they're slightly a little bit late. But yeah, they're trying to keep the distance as much as possible in uptime. Uptime. Just keep shooting. Farming the ultimate, farming the damage. And you need to also watch for the side flank. Just prepare some of your combo, for example. And see, they'll also do a lot of jump peaks, actually. They're similar to what the Loki did too. Just trying to get an extra angle of attack. While we do so, there are two things. Well, first off, you get an off angle. This is just slide off angle right in the moment. Even though we are main, you can always jump up. And this way, it gets us to slide about over you. Yeah, for example, here, you will see that. They're gonna jump. I think it was even before. Yeah, they've been, yeah, like right there. They've been doing that. And this is your slide off angle because there's just none else we can take. The map is not allowing us to go to the left side because it's too enclosed. The right side, well, maybe could be doable, but it would take you a little bit of time to get there. But they create a nice off angle by jumping, and you want to just make sure you constantly keep the pressure up on the backline and the squishes. Because you don't want to shoot the tank, you want to shoot the follow-up most of the time. See how they avoid getting shots on those tanks unless it's really necessary, or those are really killable. You're constantly doing something with your damage so far. Notice how they move. They're not just diverting, they're not kind of going towards the main. They keep their lane as much as possible. A lot of the guys would say, but what happens if the dive happens, yeah? Or like, I'm just, supports are not healing me. No, it's fine. The map control is more important. Just understand how to use cover, understand how to use your defensive abilities like here. I see they're doing really well and just dodging, using this small thing as their cover and maintaining this lane on the right, while there's also pressure in the middle. And we just need to ask for healing, ask for the support, and prepare your E in here. And that's how you survive. You don't have to move towards your team right away for the healing. Okay, later on, we're moving here because we need to do early pressure. Yeah, pressure before the fight. Just apply constant damage output. Here, you will see just a little bit of shooting, and then after that, when the enemy team is gonna be ready, yeah, I was asking for damage boost most likely. Yeah, the enemy team will get close, then we'll move somewhere else probably. But yeah, getting additional off angle with verticality at least. And if the map is not allowing us to do much. I would like them to use this left here. Yeah, exactly. That's what their position. This left here would be more convenient, I think, right at the start, because it's even more sharper sightline. It's just constantly doing that damage to the long sideline here, and it's also nice off angle. You don't have to always do jump peeking, to be honest, but that also depends on how close the enemy team is. Just constant pressure, constant damage output. Alright. And then later on we have to fall back and just give up the angle a little bit. I mean, this main side, because this turn is a little bit too... Not too... let's say there are a lot of expectations for you to meet some more shorter range characters. Maybe there's gonna be Sarlacc, there's gonna be Moon Knight. You wanna be careful. You wanna have distance from those angles again. Just keep that in mind. I see how they're taking advantage of their mobility all the time. Yeah, their stamina. The stamina is important. What are you doing with the shift? What are you doing with your power jump? Ideally, if you're ready, well, if you expect some sort of dive towards you happening, you need to have most of your stamina, to be honest. It's also another thing. So, for example, here, if the pressure happens to me, I just want to be ready to run away and use the stamina. Unfortunately, they got caught anyway, but... still, this is really, really important. Right, and this is when we have to just resustain and see how they're not just going towards the main. Yeah, they have this nice sideline here. Again, they're just on the right side. Can be good enough, to be honest, because you don't want to be stuck together, especially if you know there are some of your ultimates, like Sarlacc, maybe there's a Moon Knight, potentially in Siri, which can be the case too. That is something what we don't want to deal with and stay stuck with the rest of our team. Constant damage output, constant pressure. Right, I think we can move to another replay really soon. But so far, any questions about this Widow play? Maybe there's something you want to ask, feel free to do so. Just what, maybe some of the topics I didn't mention, but so far, all of this should be pretty clear, just around 2 topics. Constant damage output, lane control. So yeah. Yeah, if you guys want to unmute, feel free to ask the question. It's funny, I always go laugh for that point, didn't know about the right. Yeah, exactly. I think if you play more poke character, this platform here is gonna be really important, because you don't want to be stuck on low ground. This platform is a little nicer power position too. You can just always try to apply a little bit more damage output this way. You just get nice over you. Want to see as much open space as possible when we are controlling the map with the poke characters, with the long range characters. You on Punisher,
Yeah.
we'll go here. Yeah?
Yeah, because for me it's like I always go left just to try to like get up to where the actual card is. I had no idea that there was actually an actual spot up here to where I could actually place like a possible turret up here.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a good spot to start with. I remember we've been doing some water views before as well, and there was one of yours, right? And we talked about how you can take an off angle with the turret and just make things happen. Yeah, passive power. You go on the off angle, the enemy makes a commitment, maybe towards you or one of your teammates, and you can just shut that down with your turret. Use the turret, and you're gonna be fine, doing a lot of damage. Yeah, not like we gotta hold on the ability, but just get in the best spot possible, which creates the passive power, and this is what they do. And we'll see probably, because they're playing the Widow here, how much passive power they could create potentially, which leads to just the enemy team to do the action, yeah? They actually rotated, let me see the reason why they rotated. Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of pressure, yeah? It's just pressure being put up, but this is exactly what I mean. Because the pressure is being on you, then it means that it's not on one of your teammates. Here they realize, well, my HP is low, maybe we gotta retake the angle differently. Usually, as a pole character, if you're getting shut down by the other pole characters, you need to retake the angle. Usually, well, not retake, but take slightly different angle. That's how I would put it. If any big burst ability guy knows that you're on this angle, ideally you need to take slightly different because you need to throw off their crosshair. You don't want to get poked down and get one shot. Okay, so this is what they will try to do, and they try to do maybe move left or maybe even do the jump, for example. So yeah.
Yeah, cause I know for me, like unfortunately, as I stated earlier, unfortunately I kind of like hell even Salami can even attest to this, that for some reason, like when it a lot of times I typically go on, like, unfortunately I go on autopilot, and like even those spots, those second levels, I don't even aren't even like I don't even recognize I don't even those don't even register in my head.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. No, I mean, all those ideas, just as a overall understanding, how do you play those low-range characters, so important. Yeah, like how do you use cover, how do you apply pressure, your lane control, constantly moving in and out on the angle, and that making it so much easier for you to survive, apply pressure, all of that. Okay, I think we're good to go on the third replay. I'm excited to watch that one. It's going to be one of the #1 players too, actually, and we reviewed that one before, I believe, but it was on another character, and it's going to be slight different situation, slight different DPS. I think, well, we could maybe use the tank for that too, the Magneto, but I think I already reviewed that one. By the way, I also made a note here, if you want to take advantage of the other lesson, it's in here. The link is gonna be in presentation, because a lot of times when you're trying to control as many lanes as possible, power positions are important. So again, for example, here we talked about how taking this high ground can create that power position, yeah? Or like even in this replay, this is power position, yeah, passive power in a way. We make the enemy to do something towards us, and this is really nice. So remember that time when we had the position over here. Yeah, this is gonna be maybe your slight power spot too. To be honest, this is gonna be like, this middle one is good power position in general, right? Because it allows you to control this entire point, but overall just also find out like those small, I think, complemented spaces, complemented positions, at least on the pole characters, which allow you to control the map as much as possible, control as much open space as possible, to be honest. So yeah, it's usually gonna be near some sort of power spot too. Something to keep in mind. All right, let's see this third replay. It's gonna be Hala, and there's also can be video. You guys can watch that later. Maybe if you want to implement some of that stuff, just rewatch and see how you can apply it in your games. And now, this is Surefor. I think this is different account they have. It seems they have two accounts. It's one White Among Us and another one is T-Sumi, I believe. Those are the same names they used in Overwatch as well. I remember them as a player, and they're really good at just understanding how the lane control works, how they can just move on the angle, they don't give it up. And Hala is more pole character, but you got some ability tools too. Yeah, it's more frequent compared to the video where it's more kind of consistent running and jumping. Here you can instantly go from one place to another, even though it's not too far, but still, you can do that. You have that one escape ability. And of course there's a stun too. If somebody goes in, you can always stun them. Let's see how they control the map. Okay, and this is gonna be interesting map because there are a lot of opportunities for you to take nice off angles. You not wanna be stuck together with your team, just try to be creative somewhere or find a way to use verticality, usually control as many lanes as possible. So I see them starting out actually right on top of this building. Why? Because we're able to control this entire space, this entire main road, this left side as well. If any diver will actually get close, we can always poke that before in the head. So they are not diving your backline. Now that's what I can do. See that Salak here? Well, deal with the Salak by shooting her first, deny the engagement, and later on they will not be able to dive. You can also maybe just poke out that Iron Fist as well, which has been pretty a lot of times being played too in the games recently. But yeah, anyway, they just trying to apply pressure and constantly try to make sure they have the distance from the angles too. If they get pushed, well, that happens, but eventually they need to retake the angle control again, if that's possible. You'll probably see them later on to just try to move towards one of the sides here. It's either the left or the right side. Probably expect them to take the top here, which they probably will. Yes. They're trying to make the jump out. Yeah, it's not possible, I think. And they're just trying to move this way. And this is going to be just normal shooting on the main lane here. And by doing that, we can divert the attention and see if this happens. This is what we're talking about. It's not that their reaction is really good. It's you gotta anticipate that. You gotta anticipate that Salak diving you. You can prepare your E. You can prepare your shift, even just escape, and just do the damage. Yeah, we stun them, and now we can make that easy for us to align the shots too. You just put the pressure on them. Unfortunately, they had to give up the angle, but anyway, this is a good kind of learning point, right? And just constantly make sure you're moving. Okay, they're also taking time to do the headshot and Iron Fist. That's been good for them. Yeah, patience is always crucial. And you see, they're not afraid to challenge anybody on the dive, especially if they'll use their abilities. They just keep poking them and keep taking your own off angle. Stay away from your core. And this is going to be one of the lanes that will probably move on. See, there's a main lane. Maybe they can try to position later. I probably expect them to lean towards this left side A, but I also might be positioned on this third lane, which goes this way here. Kind of, yeah, let's be more accurate. Yeah, this is main lane. This is where the card goes. This is going to be your kind of another lane over here. And this is going to be the third one. Yeah, sometimes lanes can go into one another, so that's okay. Actually start on the main here a little bit, not able to take that right side right away, but yeah, eventually you see them doing that again. Yeah, they just keep moving on the lane. They're not missing that opportunity. Remember, you as a Hell, you also have that constant damage output with the hit scan, so you just need to be able to shoot from the long distance and you can try to also shoot the corners a little bit more too, as I mentioned. Just make sure your crossfire placement on some sort of corner. It's applying constant pressure, and this way it makes it easy. Alright, we see them using the ultimate to just resustain a little bit, yeah, because the enemy's been doing quite a lot of pressure. Just need to get the momentum back, and eventually the Luna Snow also, it allowed them to catch up as well and just push the rest of the enemy team here. And even there, see, they're not afraid to just stay on somewhere on the sides, yeah? Keep thinking how to divert the enemy attention. Like, if we divert the attention of that Iron Fist, for example, when they go on us, that means my backline is safe. It means maybe my supports are safe. Like, right now, their Luna Snow is dead, but, for example, the Rocket Raccoon can do a little bit more. Maybe even the rest of their, like, tanks can push a little bit more or something. It's always find your way to play on this side. Sometimes you die, obviously, but that's fine. As long as you create enough value, to be honest, to your team, it's not bad to die. There are no good or bad deaths. I mean, there are not always bad deaths in this game. There are sometimes really good deaths if you're able to force out more abilities, if you're able to make things happen, win the fight, turn that around. So that's really, really important here. Okay, again, we'll probably expect them to just go somewhere on this either top building or the left, because see the turn it takes the right side. There's also another idea. Remember, if we go back to it, we talked about the crossfire, and we also talked about how we want to control as much space as possible. And if you're trying to create that sharp sightline, the sharp sightline is just more kind of sharp corner. It's just, instead of us looking at the corner this way where the enemy can easily hide, so for example this Magneto, they can go right side of when we trying to shoot. Okay, instead of it, we're trying to create more sharp sightline and maybe move a little bit to the left, for example here, and this opens up opportunity. This always creates opportunity for you to just make it harder for this guy to survive. Yeah, you need to be applying constant damage output this way. Sharp sightline on any long range character. If you're able to do that, that's good. The general rule of thumb is If they move right behind the cover, if they're about to create that right turn, yeah, they go right turn, I go left. If they go left turn, for example, they will try to hide behind this left building. I want to have sharp sightline on the right side, this way, okay? And we'll see them do that probably later on, if that's needed. Yeah, it seems like the enemy team's pushing, so they don't need it now, but you'll see a lot of it later. Like, for example, remember this position here. Why they've been here? Because they're trying to create a sharper sightline towards that corner, but yeah. I think now they just have to resustain a little. Let's see how the fight develops. Just moving back a little bit. Need to take HP back too. And from here, it's gonna be tough for them to survive. But yeah, they're still trying. They're still trying to fight. See how they use cover really well as well. They're not exposed to that unnecessary damage. Try to stay in your lane as much as possible. Yeah, don't give it up maybe. But be reasonable. If you're in danger to die, then I think you have to move away. But you're not just being diverted towards the main, you're not just kind of going towards the main unnecessarily with the rest of your team. Yeah, maybe you need to touch the cart, or maybe there's a good kill opportunity, then you can go for it. Like here, they use an ultimate. Well, obviously, you might just need to be able to stay on the main a little bit more. Just create a little bit more burst. Now they kind of go back on their lane again. This left side, it's just more longer range. That's where we expect them to be. Watch that little play. That's insane. Right there. They actually been able to stop the Psylocke from using the ultimate there. Okay, so the replay actually froze because of it too. The Psylocke dashed, and that's when they got an ultimate because they did the damage. And now this little stun there, just interrupt that animation. Now they're at 50%. That's insane, right? But it's just anticipation. You probably expect this guy to have an ultimate, and they might also solo ult you if you don't have that escape ability too. So I can prepare my E and shut it down. So good. Okay, let's see the next point. That's gonna be probably again them starting somewhere on the sides. Yeah, they start on the left side now, where their team might just go on the main probably, and constantly apply the poke. And see the sideline, it's a sharp sideline, how sharp it is. Yeah, instead of it being like this way, I don't know, like where it's easy for the enemy to hide, we open up the angle as much as possible, long sidelines, and apply constant pressure from here. We don't want to make it easy to hide for the enemy team. They got shut down by that Hawkeye though, which is a little bit unfortunate. But to be honest, to just avoid this, what you need is a good time with the rest of your team. They just got a little bit greedy. They just poking, but the rest of their team is coming back soon. So you want to be careful. If there's anybody with a big burst knows where you are, you cannot stay on the angle for too long. Yeah, like watch this guy. They kind of probably expect this Hala to stay there, and that's why you can maybe just catch on them and just push them out. But yeah, it's just, as a Hala, what we could be doing? Well, wait for the rest of your core. Be careful if you're just poking out before the fight, and try to reposition yourself, take slight different angle if the enemy a big burst knows where you are. But yeah, so far it's happening. It can happen. Those are all good players, to be honest. Okay, they did been not able to shut down that Psylocke engagement of the E this time, but yeah, that was anyway fine. All right, they have to reset, and now taking a little bit more space again. Probably will expect them to either move left or right. I don't know. Let's see. I'm not sure the sidelines here where the fight develops. They kind of move in main now, but I think they're trying to aim for this platform here. Probably, yes. Open up the opportunities. Stay on off angle away from the rest of your core, and constant damage output. Apply the damage. And see, this anticipation. The diver goes on me, I can move back a little bit. I can just give up the position if it's necessary. Well, not give up that completely, but kind of move on my lane, I think. This is lane to the right, this is lane in the middle, this is lane on that left side as well. So this way it makes it easy for you to control the space. Right, so both teams, they use the support ultimates. We're trying to stay alive. This way we have to keep the distance because of the Iron Fist. Trying to survive that a little bit, but I think it's not possible. Just a lot of damage coming in. And from here, have to reset again. But once you're resetting, put the pressure on the divers first. Yeah, put the pressure on Ivy first. Put the pressure on Psylocke, especially if you expect them to be on 80% of the ultimates. You want to be able to stun them. You want to be able to just make the engagement hard, so they don't have their full abilities. They don't have the whatever. Just allows them to close the distance, and should be all good. Alright, we almost gonna come to an end. I don't know, you guys got any questions so far about this session so far, about just how to control the space as a bow character? Maybe anything you want me to elaborate on, let me know. What do you guys wanna ask? Any questions you got? I see there's someone typing. Yeah, 2 people. If you guys want to unmute, you can also ask the questions too. But yeah, we all almost finished.
Who do you think are the best like DPS pokes? Or who do you anticipate to be maybe some of the best DPS pokes coming into season 2.5?
Oh, season 2. To be honest with you, I'm not sure yet, because it highly depends on just what's gonna be really strong with the current patch, because how meta works is we have strong characters, and the characters which are complementing really well to those characters too. So I'm not sure what the meta is gonna be, because it needs some testing always. Like whenever you see people play it, and you kind of see that. Yeah, because on the paper, well, we could see, let's actually read the notes as well. I think there are gonna be some changes to Thor, which has been pretty big, some nerfs on the other tanks. They also introduced a new one. Yeah, also expect probably new characters usually kind of become more meta initially, because they're a little bit overbuffed, because people, they want to just play those characters a little bit more. But yeah,
I know when it comes to Punisher, because I saw Gale's video for when it came to him him trying out Punisher in the practice range. Holy crap, he can literally melt through tanks in maybe roughly 4 or 5 seconds if it's all headshots.
right. Yeah, there's
And
mhm.
yeah, go ahead. No, yeah, go ahead.
No, I think you're right. Yeah. So yeah, anything you want to add as well?
I have a question. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Spade. Sorry, I thought he was
I
referring to
was
me.
just gonna ask, for these tips that you gave for Loki, Black Widow, and Hela, like, would they be dependent on your team's Vanguard choices? Like, for instance, if you're like this one that we're watching now, the Hela, if they didn't have Magneto on their team, instead they had the Thing and Thor, would their positioning and all of that be different, or would it be relatively the same?
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's a good question. I would say those principles are universal. Doesn't matter the comp, but you can always do some tweaks depending on the comps, obviously, but those are going to be less significant, I think. If, for example, have more brawl-oriented team, that means we will be fighting more in enclosed spaces, or maybe more short sidelines, maybe also less of those sharp angles sometimes too. But to be honest, you can also kind of find out, well, if I have really a brawl team, maybe I can also play brawl character, but make sure it's within your comfort picks. You don't force yourself to play the characters you don't want to play. Usually it's just for the learn sim. If we just aiming towards the highest rank later on, it's usually good if you have one brawl character, one dive, one poke, but it's always good to start with just 1-2 initially. I always suggest that. For just during all the years of playing, when I've been reaching top 10 on Overwatch, and also just coaching for how many years, like 6, 7, I'm not sure at this point, yeah, but all that time, if there's a player A who has 2 3 characters in their pool in both games, doesn't matter, like Mario Rivals at this game, if they have 2 3 characters in their pool, even one, compared to the player B who has a lot of characters, like 5 or 6, I don't know, or even sometimes 10, the player A improves faster because they have to learn less micros. They have to, well, it's just more tight focus on all the concepts. It makes it easy. So yeah, first off, solve the performance, the most fundamental things. I usually suggest that. Later on, you can also see the positional tweaks you can do depending on the comp. It can be also another topic for the masterclass, just team compositions, how it changes your playstyle, what is based on, how can you take different positions, yeah, because there's 3 overall compositions: brawl, dive, and poke. And usually in the rank you see the hybrid, but overall you can always find out the main direction your team is going with, and then try to change your playstyle a little bit, but it shouldn't be your primary decision. Yeah, like those concepts are pretty universal, I would say. Pretty much, yeah. All of that is applicable. Watch the map too. Obviously, the team composition is not always the most important. It's just first team comp, second can be the map as well. If the map allows you to play your long range character as well, that is something to keep in mind. Just 2 things to consider usually. The enemy team can be another one, but it's less of priority because you usually want to figure out how do you set up your own win condition, how do you win on your character first. Play around your strengths. Yeah, strengths, it means what the map I'm comfortable with. Okay, maybe this one is long sideline, I can play poke. Or there's a poke composition you play with. Okay, again, you're more comfortable. But you see this composition even, it's just not as pokey, to be honest. Yeah, if you see, okay, actually, okay, never mind. I think they got a lot of poke. Yeah, just, there was a Adam. Yeah, I didn't notice that. The Adam, Luna, and this here, Magneto, have a lot of poke. So your main decision, if you ever change in your playstyle slightly, is don't look at Vanguard, look at the entire comp. Yeah, but there are small tweaks you want to do.
I do have one more question.
Yeah, of course.
So the examples that you showed, I noticed they're all either convoy or convergence. So does this, like all the things that you've shown for this class, would that still apply to domination as well?
Yeah, it doesn't
Since
matter
they
the map.
are typically closer in spaces and stuff?
Yeah, it doesn't matter the map, still the idea is the same. If it's enclosed space, right, that means you're just less comfortable. But it does not mean that you not prefer the open space, right? It does mean that you don't prefer controlling the lane. It does mean that you not prefer also controlling the off angle. And it's also the damage output too, right? So the principles will be the same there. Just less comfortable maps for you. But yeah, that's why you see less Widows and Hawkeyes on those really shorter range maps. Yeah, it's just gonna be more of a brawl or maybe sometimes dive if there are a lot of flank routes, stuff like that. Okay. Yeah, any
That makes
other
sense.
questions?
If anything, I'll probably be able to kind of like do a refresher on this course or directly on the web on the site anyways.
Of course. Yeah, it's all good. And maybe if there are gonna be any questions later, feel free to message me, or feel free to tag me, and I'm also gonna send the link to this masterclass in Class and Drills. I'm glad to help you out, guys, and any questions, let me know. I think we're about to end, and